The business of professional sports is built on a fragile, carefully constructed illusion. The owners, the executives, and the mainstream sports media want you to believe everyone is aligned. They want you to think the players, the union, and the league are all moving in perfect sync toward a bright, massively profitable future. For the last 12 months, the WNBA has been selling that fairy tale. You've seen the record-breaking TV ratings. You've seen sold-out arenas across the country. You've seen charter flights finally implemented after years of complaints. By every mainstream measure, the league has just experienced the biggest financial and cultural boom in the history of women's sports. And let's be brutally honest, that explosion was built largely on the back of one transcendent rookie. This should be the start of a dynasty. This should be the moment when every player in the league is stacking money, locking in long-term security, and preparing for a golden era of unprecedented opportunity. But that's not what's happening. Instead, the WNBA is quietly standing on the edge of a full-blown civil war. A self-inflicted, ego-driven standoff that threatens to torch the entire empire just as the foundation is finally being set. If you think the upcoming collective bargaining negotiations are just a routine labor dispute about salaries and travel perks, you're buying into one of the biggest media smokescreens in modern sports. What's actually unfolding behind the scenes is a high-stakes power struggle. A battle for control fueled by resentment, cultural tension, and a dangerous disconnect from economic reality. The league's veterans are playing a risky game of chicken with the most valuable asset they've ever had, the fans, and they seem fully prepared to blow the whole thing up. Mainstream sports media is terrified to spell this out. Turn on a major network or read a big-name sports outlet, and you'll get a carefully polished narrative. They'll tell you the players are simply opting out to secure their fair, equitable share. They'll frame it as an empowering labor movement, a righteous stand for respect and livable wages against billionaire owners. It sounds noble. It sounds progressive. It sounds exactly like the kind of story corporate media loves to package and sell. But beneath that glossy PR veneer, the WNBA Players Association is cracking. The image of unity and sisterhood is starting to fracture, and a serious cultural divide is forming right down the middle of the locker room. Listen closely to veteran sports analyst Jason Whitlock as he lays out the uncomfortable truth that few others are willing to say out loud.
And it seems like it's going to split. I don't think most people are recognizing this, but the white girls are ready to end this whole deal and sign the deal. They don't want to strike. The black girls are still holding out and they're oppressed, and they want to play this to the bust. You got Kelsey, Plum, you got Breanna, Stewart basically saying, hey, look, we need to play this season. It's important. We don't need to strike. And then
What you just heard is the reality of a fractured union. This isn't just a routine negotiation over revenue splits. It's a cultural proxy war playing out in real time. To grasp the scale of this crisis, you have to understand the brutal economics of a professional sports union. In any collective bargaining fight, leverage is everything. NBA players have enormous leverage because the league generates billions in guaranteed global TV revenue. If they strike, owners bleed instantly. NFL players hold leverage because football is woven into the fabric of American culture. The WNBA historically has not operated from that position of strength. For years, the league ran at a loss. It was heavily subsidized by the NBA just to stay afloat. For more than 2 decades, the players had virtually no leverage because the product simply wasn't profitable. Then Clark arrived. Almost overnight, the financial equation shifted. The league suddenly had a transcendent superstar pulling in massive audiences and turning regular season games into must-watch events. For the first time, real leverage existed. But instead of deploying that leverage with precision, a faction of hardline veterans inside the union chose to weaponize the moment, not only against ownership, but seemingly against the very forces that created this surge in value. This isn't a unified labor front. It's a fragmented, chaotic power struggle that's starting to alienate the rank-and-file players, the ones who are quietly terrified about what happens next. And if you think that's overstated, listen to just how deep the internal dysfunction has become.
out, I'm scared, all of this stuff. The WNBPA, this has been a debacle.
When the working class members of your own union are openly afraid of the leadership strategy, that's not a labor movement. That's a hostage situation. Put yourself in the mindset of the middle-tier player, the one grinding it out for $80,000 to $100,000 a year. She's not landing multi-million-dollar endorsement deals with Nike or Gatorade. She depends on those game checks to survive, to cover rent, to support her family. For her, a lockout isn't some abstract stand for social justice or a symbolic way to challenge ownership. It's a direct path to financial instability. But the loudest, most aggressive voices steering the Players Association don't live in that reality. They're insulated by max contracts, overseas deals, and ideological missions. They can afford to sit out. They're willing to gamble with the livelihood of the league's working class to score broader political points. They're risking the strongest momentum this league has ever seen because their pride won't let them swallow a hard truth. Caitlin Clark changed the trajectory of the business, and that reality creates resentment. To understand the looming disaster, you have to break down the power structure pulling the WNBA apart. In a healthy professional league, the power triangle, the commissioner, the owners, and the players' union, exists in tense but rational balance. They negotiate hard. They fight over every dollar. But they never destroy the golden goose. They understand that without the consumer, without fans buying tickets and tuning in, the entire system collapses. Right now, that balance feels broken. Look at the financial architecture. The new media rights deal is a significant step forward, reportedly worth more than $2 billion over 11 years. That's a major leap compared to previous agreements. But apply basic business math. Spread over a decade and divided among teams, it's a strong foundation, not an instant transformation into NBA-level economics. It doesn't automatically create the kind of profit margins required to satisfy the most aggressive, unchecked revenue demands being floated by some union voices. The hidden leverage in all of this is public perception. The fans who packed arenas this past season didn't show up to watch labor disputes or ideological standoffs. They came to see a generational talent launch Logo 3s and elevate the sport. The union believes its leverage lies in league-wide loyalty. The harder truth? A massive portion of these new fans are loyal specifically to Caitlin Clark. If a lockout wipes her off television screens, those fans aren't going to stand on picket lines. They won't patiently wait for a philosophical victory. They'll move on, and some may never return. Yet the most militant wing of the union frames every negotiation through the lens of historical grievance and systemic injustice. For them, revenue growth isn't enough unless it comes with total ideological victory. Now listen closely to the rhetoric being used by players like Natasha Cloud, and pay attention to the widening economic disconnect embedded in those demands.
Making enough, that middleman potentially still not making enough for housing to also be taken off of the table. You all know this New York market. that $200,000 jump that players are going to make, that's before taxes, that's before what they would have to pay for a potential. I think there's a lot more that we
A professional athlete going on camera to argue that a $200,000 salary increase still isn't enough because of taxes and housing costs. That is a public relations disaster. In sports labor disputes, fan sympathy is everything. When Major League Baseball players went on strike in 1994, the damage to the sport's popularity lingered for years because everyday working fans couldn't relate to millionaires battling billionaires over revenue splits. The WNBA operates with far less margin for error when it comes to public goodwill. The average American household earns around $75,000 a year. So when a professional basketball player suggests that $200,000 amounts to a hardship wage, it doesn't create solidarity. It creates resentment. As WNBA legend Rebecca Lobo recently pointed out, that kind of rhetoric risks alienating the very consumer base the league needs to survive. The most hardline veterans appear trapped in an echo chamber of their own making. They've convinced themselves they are indispensable pillars of the industry. But at the end of the day, this is entertainment. And in entertainment economics, one rule stands above all. If you alienate the audience, the revenue disappears. Yet the faction pushing hardest toward a strike seems willing to torch everything to prove a point. Which leads to the most explosive theory surrounding this looming crisis. What if this isn't a miscalculation? What if it's intentional? The veterans steering the union toward a lockout aren't naive. They have agents, financial advisors, and legal teams. They understand the economic projections. They know a strike could derail the league's momentum and undo the growth they've just experienced. So why risk it? Why gamble with the platform that provides their income, status, and influence? Because power is addictive. For years, these veterans were the uncontested faces of a relatively small stage. The WNBA was their domain. They shaped the culture. They controlled the narrative. Even if the league wasn't profitable, it was theirs. Then a rookie from Iowa arrived. A player who didn't fit the established mold, who didn't align with long-standing dynamics, and who instantly shifted the global spotlight. Caitlin Clark didn't just boost ratings. She disrupted the existing hierarchy. Suddenly, the attention, the endorsement dollars, and the cultural gravity tilted in a new direction. For some veterans, that shift felt less like growth and more like displacement. The theory gaining traction is this. The most militant voices inside the union may see a strike not as collateral damage, but as leverage. A shutdown halts momentum. It resets narratives. It disrupts the very wave that elevated one player above the rest. If that's even partially true, then this isn't just about money. It's about control. It's about status. It's about who gets to define the future of the league. And if this power struggle continues down its current path, the consequences...
They'll blow this thing up. I would not be surprised.
They're already blowing it up.
They will blow this up. That's the core danger of ideological capture. When a labor union stops operating as a rational economic entity and starts functioning as an activist vehicle, standard business logic goes out the window. A rational actor tries to maximize profit and minimize risk. An ideological actor prioritizes disruption and demands compliance, no matter the financial fallout. That's the reality the WNBA may be staring at. Ownership and the more pragmatic players appear locked in a room with a faction metaphorically holding a detonator, threatening to press it unless emotionally driven, highly ambitious demands are fully met. Consider the collateral damage. The middle-tier players who could lose housing security. Arena workers who lose shifts and income. Broadcast partners stuck with empty programming slots. All of it potentially sacrificed in a battle rooted in ego and cultural resentment. And remember, the fans ultimately decide what survives. The American public doesn't need the WNBA. It's an entertainment product that has only recently broken into the mainstream. If a lockout erases a season, if it removes Caitlin Clark from national screens at the height of her momentum, many casual fans won't organize in protest. They'll simply disengage. And some may not return. If that happens, the league doesn't just slip back into quiet obscurity with NBA subsidies. It risks deeper structural damage. Networks could demand concessions. Owners, already sensitive to financial strain, could reconsider long-term commitments. Franchise stability could come into question. What should have been the most celebrated season in league history could instead mark a turning point, undermined from within by unresolved power struggles. The clock is ticking. The collision course feels real. The internal battle for control is escalating, even if the broader media landscape softens the edges of the story. So, here's the question. Will cooler heads prevail? Will pragmatic leadership protect the league's momentum? Or will hardline voices push this opportunity to the brink in pursuit of pride and leverage? I want your perspective. Do you believe a WNBA strike is inevitable? If a lockout happens, are you sticking with the league or walking away if Caitlin Clark disappears from your screen? Drop your thoughts below. If you want clear-eyed analysis about the business of sports, subscribe, turn on notifications, and share the video. We don't recycle polished talking points. We break down the power dynamics behind the scenes. Stay sharp.
Just a little hesitation
I'll see you in the next one.